Hi guys, I'm Ivory and today I'm going to be doing a wear test comparing two foundations. I'm going to be comparing the new Fenty Pro Filt'r Soft Matte Powder Foundation against the JCat Aquasurance Compact Foundation. I'm going to put both of these on half my face to show you what it looks like initially, and then I'm going to check in throughout the day to show you how it wears. And then whoever loses, dies? That's fair, right? We'll cross that bridge when we get there. It might be a tie. For anyone that is new, my skin is currently oily combo, but for most of my life and actually most of my wear tests, I've just had oily skin. And I also have blemishes because I am an acne skinned angel. So a lot of my wear tests are catered towards people with similar skin types. So if you find that this review is helpful, I will link up in the cards a playlist of all the other foundations that I've done a review on. I also do have a dedicated video where I did a wear test on just the JCat Aquasurance Foundation, but this is my first time using the Fenty Powder Foundation. But do not worry, I do intend on doing a 2-day wear test just dedicated to this foundation as well. So just be on the lookout for that. So I have cleanse and moisturize. I used Curology, and then I am gonna prime. I'm gonna use the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer, just because I do find that powder foundations, they don't always lay as nicely on my skin. They're not as flexible as a liquid foundation. So any texture that I have, it doesn't always sit on it very well. So all the areas that I do have texture, basically the center of my face, I'm gonna add some primer. So both of the foundations do have a applicator in the bottom, and I am gonna use both of their applicators today just because I feel like it is convenient to have it all in one as opposed to carrying a separate sponge or a brush. Both of the foundations claim to be a medium full coverage. The JCat foundation has 0.31 ounces, whereas the Fenty one has 0.32, so almost have the exact same amount of product. However, the JCat Aquasurance costs $14, whereas the Fenty one costs $36. So there is a big price difference. There are things about the Aquasurance that I don't love, so I'm hoping the things I don't particularly love about this foundation, it will be remedied by this. But I don't know, we'll see. That's what the whole point of this video is. So I'm gonna go in with JCat first, and I'm gonna use the applicator dry. By the way, I'm using the shade Medium Beige. Don't get Medium Beige. This was given to me by a friend, and she is a very different undertone. Medium Beige sounds like it would be my shade, but it's not. It's a little, like, you see, it's a little too peachy for me, but free is free, you know? And I'm just kind of patting it into my skin. Oh shoot, I forgot to add concealer first. Hold on. Luckily, I don't apply foundation ever under my eyes. I'm only gonna add it here because the rest of my face I did add powder. I don't want it to mess up the wear test because typically you want to add liquids first and then powder. I got a little bit too ahead of myself. Okay, we're going back with the foundation. And then I'm going to go in with the Fenty one next. The sponge that they provide feels more or less the same. It is a little bit thinner though, but as far as the feel of it, they're the same thing. So I'm just going to do the same thing where I just swipe it and apply it to the face. This undertone is definitely better for me. The foundation literally came out today. It's the 26th. So as soon as Sephora opened, I marched my thick little booty to the store to pick it up. And the shade that I got was 300. So in the liquid versions of her foundation, I used the shade 290. But in store, when I swatched it on my hand, I felt like the 290 powder and the 290 liquid were just a hair off. Like the powder version was just a little bit lighter than the liquid version. So that's why I went with 300. But maybe I should have went with 290. It is a little bit dark, but the undertone is right. That's okay. This will just be my summer foundation, I guess. All right, so this is one layer of the foundation. Both sides to me are medium coverage. You could see on the JCat side, my acne is still showing. I covered up a decent amount of it, but definitely not all of it. And same thing on the Fenty side. Bit of discoloration and my acne down here still peeking through. I feel like the Fenty side just may have a hair more coverage, but to me they both sit in the medium coverage category. Anyone that's new, there's definitely different tiers of medium. There's low medium, and then there's just a solid medium, and then there's medium full. I would say right now this is just medium. I'm gonna go ahead and add a second layer only to the cheek area, since I feel like that's really the only area that needs a little bit more coverage. The rest of my face I feel pretty content with. I did see on Sephora that they recommended using a brush for the Fenty foundation if you wanted full coverage. So that is something that I will test for my dedicated video on this. But this is the second layer. I really just added coverage only on the cheeks. It is buildable for both of them. So right now I think that we're closer to a medium full. One of the things I don't like about powder foundations is the way that it lays on my acne. It doesn't always sit right because the skin on top of it is usually really thin and dry. So on the JCat side, I do see it is a little bit crusty here. And also down here on the Fenty side where my acne is, it's crusty there as well. On the Fenty side, it isn't perfect, but it does look a little bit better than the JCat side. But like I said, this is a common problem with powder foundations in my experience. Overall though, I feel like they are very similar. However, I do feel like the Fenty side is just a little bit more polished. This side just looks a tad bit smoother. Both my cheeks have acne scarring because I used to be really bad at picking it. Learn from my mistakes. Do not do that. You will regret it decades down the line. I feel like this side, is it better? I mean, they really are close, but this side I just feel like it's just a tad smoother. But reiterating, still very similar. I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward the rest of my face. All of the products that I am using will be linked in my description box below. Alright, so makeup went on perfectly normally on both sides. Both feel super lightweight. That's one of the nice things about powders, especially if you use liquid foundations and you're used to setting your face right after. With this, you don't have to do all that, so you skip that step and there's just less product on your face, so things naturally feel a lot lighter. But in general, powder foundations do feel a lot lighter than liquid foundations, even if you don't set it. At least for me it does. I can't speak for everyone. But this is what it looks like. They look, you know, it's too soon to tell, but that is it for this first impression. I will check in around, I'll probably check in around 2 hours just because I want to show you what it looks like in natural lighting and I want to get that before the sun goes down. So I will see you in a couple hours. Okay, so it's been about 3-ish hours. As far as oils go, I don't think I'm oily at all. I think actually now that my oils have mixed in with the foundation, it looks better than it did initially. As far as how it's laying on my skin, I do feel like the Fenty side is a little bit better. So like I said earlier, I have acne scarring on both of my cheeks and you could see the way the powder is on the JCat side. You can see that the foundation is just not laying as smooth. You can still see the divots where the scarring exists, whereas on this side, even though I do still have scarring, it just looks a little bit smoother and a little bit more polished. So I do think overall the Fenty side just looks better. You can also see it in areas where I have a lot of creasing, such as my T-zone. This part's gonna be hard to see unless you were here because obviously where they meet, there's a little bit of cross-contamination, but I'm gonna try my best here. You can see like where my wrinkles scrunch and then I relax. Where the foundation settles, it settles more in the JCat side, whereas this side looks a little bit smoother. There are very faint lines, but it's not settling in my creases as much as the JCat side. I'm gonna save my opinions till the end because it's still really soon and you know, things can change. That is it for now. I will check in a couple hours. I am wearing this foundation for 10 hours today, but I wanna do one more check-in just because I would like to see how it looks a little past the halfway point. See you then. All right, we are 7 hours in and I am noticeably shinier. I think I want to touch up at this point. I'll do that in a second after I do some close-ups. As far as what side I prefer, from this distance they look very similar, but there are a couple of areas that are problematic to me where I can really see the difference, so come here. Just a reminder, this is JCat, this is Fenty. On my chin, this side is not holding together as nicely. I can see it starting to separate and crack, kind of like how when you apply liquid lipstick and over time it just starts kind of cracking at all the creases of your lips. It's kind of doing that type of action on my chin. On this side, it's holding together better. There's quite a bit of oil production on both sides of my nose, and the same thing that's happening on my chin is happening on my T-zone. It's starting to separate on the JCat side more so than on the Fenty side. From what I can tell, the Fenty side is really holding its own. I'm gonna go ahead and blot. The sheets that I use are from Amazon. I'm not sure, but I can't find these anymore on Amazon, so I will link an alternative that I actually prefer in my description box. And to avoid cross-contamination, I'm gonna use 2 different blotting sheets for both sides. And the reason why I'm blotting now versus at the end of the day is because sometimes I feel like my foundation is so oily that it's past the point of actually salvaging it because the oils have just broken it down too much at some point. So I think doing it sooner than later will really help with the longevity. And the nice thing about having a powder foundation is that you can actually like really touch it up and kind of go back in with some coverage. So I'm not adding a lot, but I did lose a little bit of coverage on my nose. It's really hardly noticeable. But while we're here, why not? And that is one of the nice things about having a powder foundation is that it's just so easy to throw into your purse to do touch-ups like this. But this is what the face will look like touched up. You can see that on my blotting sheets, there's not too much foundation that rubbed off onto them, which is a really good thing. And like I said, I lost a little bit of coverage, mainly in my nose, but that was really easy to just kind of touch up. That's all for now. I will check in at the 10-hour mark to give you my final thoughts. All right, it's actually over 10 hours now. I feel like with each check-in, my hair gets a little bit worse each time until we reach the final check-in, and I've just given up at this point with my hair. So before I bring you in, oil-wise, I feel like they look about the same. I don't feel like one side is shinier than the other in particular. And from an arm's length, I mean my arm's length, that's how far my mirror is that I'm looking at. Both sides I think look pretty similar. Reminder again, JCat side, Fenty side. The JCat side, all the areas where I have a lot of texture, so I'm gonna point them out. The chin, my upper lip area, my nose, and my T-zone. Those are all my problematic areas that I'm gonna be referring to. In all of those areas, it doesn't look as smooth as the Fenty side. I still see a little bit of the cracking and settling into my fine lines, more so on the JCat side. There are flaws on the Fenty side, however. You see where my acne is. It's starting to break up around my blemishes. It's not covering my acne as well as it did at the beginning. So it's starting to break up over the areas where it's not perfectly smooth. And this is very common with all foundations, powder and liquid for me. For areas such as my cheeks where it's a smooth surface, I never really get any issues with my foundation lasting there. And for the most part, the same thing for most of my forehead. Foundation usually wears well there. So that's why I choose smaller areas that are problematic or textured for myself to really spot the differences, because for all foundations, areas such as my cheeks and my forehead, it'll look decent unless the foundation's like really bad. Now that we've gotten close up, let's compare and contrast the foundations. I feel like both gave me solid medium coverage. However, the Fenty side, it looked a little bit more polished at the beginning. It laid a little bit smoother. That is a problem that I had with my JCat foundation, is that it never looks super smooth. I'm not saying that the Fenty side is perfect. In fact, if I had to choose between her liquid foundations and her powder one, I still would go with her liquids, just because I feel like liquids over my acne, it just lays better and it camouflages it a lot better. But when I compare the two over my problematic areas, I feel like this one handled my texture a lot better. And I did notice that the JCat side started to break down a little bit quicker than the Fenty side. Oil wise, I feel like they're the same. You're not gonna look super greasy at the end of the day. As far as how it wears though, it kind of pains me to say this because it's over 2 times the price of the JCat one, but I preferred the Fenty one. It looked better and it wore better over time as well. So I gotta give it to Fenty. This one's the winner. That being said, I still like this foundation. I did do a review on it. I said I liked it. There were some things that I didn't love about it, and it seems like the Fenty powder kind of remedied all of the cons that I didn't like about the JCat. If you watched my review on the JCat foundation, one thing I didn't like was how it laid over my acne and my texture. This isn't perfect. Like I said, I still prefer her liquid foundation over this, but it handled my problematic areas better than the JCat one. So if you had the same problems that I had with the JCat Aquasurance, then you should try the Fenty one because it is a little bit better. Is it over 2 times the price better? It's hard to say. The cheapskate in me has a hard time saying yes. Like I said in my dedicated review, I like this foundation. I didn't love the foundation, so I do still recommend it. So if you were looking for a powder foundation, I mean, you could try this one first and see if you like it. And if you end up liking it, then you saved a bunch of money. However, if you have tried this and it didn't work out for you for reasons like my own, you should try this one then and see if it works better for you. But that is it for this review. I hope that you enjoyed. Be sure to be on the lookout for my dedicated video on this. I will film it in the next coming days, so it should be the next video coming out. And if this review was helpful for you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and feel free to comment down below what foundation I should try next. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I try to post new videos every single week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!